What's up, everybody? And welcome in to today's video. And to me, it's an important one to make. It hasn't been the biggest news story over the last couple years, but we did a video on this early on, almost 2 years ago, about Trevor Bauer, who was accused of horrible wrongdoing by a female acquaintance of his. And at the time, we talked about the restraining order that was temporarily granted. And then when they had the actual multi-day hearing, it was denied, which was actually a surprise to me. When I first broke it down, I thought most of these get granted. And so I assume this one's going to get granted. She's making all of the right complaints, saying all the right things. But even based on the very limited text messages we had at the time, I was skeptical. The judge ended up denying it, which almost never happens, and says everything we need to know about how strong or, in fact, weak her case was. But just recently, so there's no criminal charges ever filed against Trevor Bauer. They filed civil lawsuits against each other. Trevor Bauer initiated his first, and she countersued him. And just recently, I think a day or two ago, he came out with the full story saying, I want to clear my name. Let's talk about the civil lawsuits. Yes, we settled them. Usually that comes with confidentiality. It sounds like that didn't happen in this case. So we're going to break down exactly what happened in those civil lawsuits. And if this was even a just result, even though he's technically exonerated, criminally, civilly, whatever way you want to look at it, this guy still lost hundreds of millions of dollars. He was one of the best and highest paid Major League Baseball pitchers at the time all these accusations came out, and he basically lost it all. He's trying to work his way back, but in reality, he's never going to be where he was before from his career. He was in his prime and lost multiple years of that. So this is a wild story. I think it needs some awareness about when these kinds of accusations happen. What can we do as a society? What would be fair? What can we put in place to make this not something that people do on a regular basis? We want to protect victims. We want real victims to get justice. We don't want them to be afraid of going to prison if they lose their case or if criminal charges aren't found. But when they are provably lying, something needs to happen. Something needs to happen, in my opinion, if it can be proven that a victim has lied. And to date, no criminal charges have come against this false accuser. The only remedy really has been Trevor Bauer filing a civil lawsuit with his own money, paying for lawyers. And he gets into that a little bit in this video. We're going to see some specific text messages that he got in discovery. And just get ready, because it is mind blowing to think that this person got a temporary restraining order, went for a permanent restraining order, and tried to force criminal charges against Trevor Bauer for physically attacking her in the most gruesome of ways. The old video goes into detail on my page. If you just type in Trevor Bauer lawyer, that video will pop up if you want to see more of the details about this. But generally speaking, they had a sexual encounter and she accused him of the worst, regardless of some of the text messages that absolutely did not seem that way from her at the time. But it is so much worse when we get the context of before they ever met, what she was thinking and what she was planning. So let's get into some of that now with Trevor Bauer's own words. And this is the first text message it starts with. A body of a text message from her next victim, star pitcher for the Dodgers, which was in fact Trevor Bauer.
Victim, star pitcher for the Dodgers. A text Lindsay Hill sent to a friend before she ever even met me. What should I steal? She asked another, in reference to visiting my house for the first time. The answer? Take his money. So how might that work? I'm going to his house Wednesday, she said. I already have my hooks in. You know how I
I'm going to his house Wednesday. I already have my hooks in. You know how I roll. It's horrible.
roll. Then, after the first time we met, net worth is 51 mil, she said. Bitch, you better secure the bag, was the response. But how is she going to do that? Need daddy to choke me out, she said. Being an
This is before they had their encounter. And a lot of the details of the accusations that she made were about choking her out, were about hitting her in the face, were about just abusing her in every way you could possibly have. She also had pictures of her face all beat up and bruised, saying that he did this to her. She literally says, this is how she's going to secure the bag from him in the most disgusting of ways. No shame to be had by this accuser. All of this in text messages that happened before she ever even had the encounter with him. Planned, literally planned.
absolute whore to try to get in on his 51 million, read another text. Then, after the second time we met, former Padres pitcher Jacob Nix told her, you got to get this bag. I'll give you 50,000, Lindsay replied. Her AA sponsor asked her at one point, "Do you feel a tiny bit guilty?" "Not really," she replied. Since then, her legal team has approached me multiple times about coming to a financial settlement. But as I have done since day one, I refuse to pay her even a single cent.
So, multiple times, it's not unusual for plaintiff's counsel to ask for some kind of settlement, right? But it is very unusual for someone in his position to continue to say no and to spend a ton of money prosecuting a civil claim against her, the accuser, who most people, when you hear accusations like this, most people believe the female, especially with the gruesome pictures she had. Most people believe that he probably did this to her, big, strong athlete, probably some jerk of a guy. But there's just so much in this case to show that is false, not true, fabricated, and she planned it from the beginning. He's showing those facts now. It is so sad to think that this still happens today, and he can bring these facts to show what she was doing prior to them ever meeting.
In August of 2021, Lindsay Hill's claims were heard in court. And during those legal proceedings, critical information was deliberately and unlawfully concealed from me and my legal team. Information like this video, which was taken by Lindsay Hill herself the morning after she claimed she was brutally attacked, emotionally traumatized, and desperate to get away from me. And now we have the metadata, so there can be no dispute.
That's him sleeping right next to her. After their encounter, she films it. Her face looks nothing like the pictures later that we saw as part of the restraining order case, which we showed in our last video. Just absolutely wild. Absolutely wild. And this was withheld from he and his legal team. And we're going to look at some tweets between he and Elon Musk, which was kind of interesting after we watched this video.
It was taken mere minutes before she left my house on the morning of May 16th, 2021, without my knowledge or consent, of course. In it, you can see her lying in bed next to me while I'm sleeping, smirking at the camera without a care in the world, or any marks on her face. I think it paints a pretty clear picture of what actually happened the evening of May 15th and why the video was originally concealed from us. Yeah. After hearing the evidence available to her, Judge Diana Gold Saltman found that Lindsay Hill had misled the court. She found her claims to be materially misleading. She denied her request for a domestic violence restraining order, and she found that no sexual assault or non consensual conduct took place. Now,
So the judge literally found her to be misleading. She did not find her complaints to be credible and found that none of the criminal activity that was complained of took place. That there's no credible evidence for that. Very unusual for a judge to do in this kind of case. And we talked about in the last video that usually judges err on the side of granting restraining orders because you don't want the worst to happen, where you deny a restraining order and the perpetrator goes and gets the victim because you took away that legal protection. That's a big fear for judges and a big protection that we want to be in place in America for victims. But this is how it can be abused, but the judge saw through it at the time.
some of you might not know about restraining order hearings. I know I didn't, but I've since learned that it's extremely rare for a request for a restraining order to be denied because the standard of proof that you need to obtain one is extremely low.
True.
So you can make of that what you will. The fact is, I was never arrested. I was never charged with a crime, and I won the only legal proceeding that took place without my side of the story even being heard. And most importantly, as I've said from day one, I never sexually assaulted Lindsay Hill or anyone else for that matter. So I sued her, which prompted her to countersue me. Quite frankly, regardless of the outcome in court, I've paid significantly more in legal fees than Lindsay Hill could ever pay me in her entire life.
So that's just an interesting side note that when you file claims, knowing you're not going to get paid, so there's no collectability on the defendant's side, usually lawyers don't take that on contingency fee. So he had to pay lawyers out of his pocket. I believe him because this is how most plaintiffs' lawyers would charge somebody that could afford it and that you tell them you're probably never going to collect if she doesn't have any money. And they're like, I don't care. Based on principle, I have the money. I know I'm going to spend money that I'm never going to get back. This is worth it to me to clear my name. And it sounds like that's what happened here. Because when you have the discussion as if you want to file a civil lawsuit, you're not going to put her in jail in this civil lawsuit. The only thing you could ever get from her is money. And if she doesn't have the money to pay it, then you're probably never going to get this money back. So all of that is something that it seems like he knew from the jump and was still willing to do just to clear his name.
And I knew that would be the case going in. But the lawsuit was never about the money for me. It was the only way for me to obtain critical information to clear my name. The discovery process in that law
because he needed to have this formal discovery because he didn't get a lot of it in the restraining order discovery because it was concealed and not given to him, which is horrible for the accuser's lawyers to do.
lawsuit recently concluded, at which point Lindsay Hill's legal team again came to us with another proposal to resolve the case. This time, however, they weren't seeking any money from me. Having received much of the information that had been hidden from us, a small portion of which I've referenced here, I was willing to agree to the terms proposed. Both parties.
So now they came to try to settle with him again. This time they finally figured out he's not going to pay any money. And just like we talked about with settlements, you can settle for whatever you want. There doesn't have to be money. You can put in whatever parameters you want. It sounded like once they turned over all of the discovery that he wanted, or at least most or enough of the discovery that he wanted or felt like he was entitled to clear his name, then he was willing to settle the case. Now, usually, though, those details remain confidential as part of a confidentiality agreement as part of the settlement, the quid pro quo, the bargained for exchange. But that's not what he bargained for in this case.
Would drop their respective lawsuits, and neither of us would pay either side any money. I also retained my right to speak publicly about the case, something I have not been at liberty to do since June of 2021.
So you caught what he did there? They each pay their own attorney's fees. They're both going to dismiss the case. They're not going to go forward anymore, and it's over, and it doesn't cost either party any more money. Fine, fair, great. But he is allowed to discuss the case, the details, and obviously show these text messages that he's showing on YouTube now as part of the settlement agreement, because that's what was important to him.
So, as of today, both lawsuits have been settled. Now, over the last 2 years, I've been forced to defend my integrity and my reputation in a very public setting. But hopefully, this is the last time I have to do so, as I'd prefer to just remain focused on doing my job, winning baseball games, and entertaining fans around the world. So, today, I'm happy to be moving on with my life.
So, I will just say, I don't know Trevor Bauer personally. Could be a good guy, could be a bad guy, could be nice, could be a jerk. This is horrible. This should not happen to anybody. And I think more should be done. And I want to know from you, do you think that this is something that she should face criminal charges for? Because I do. I think this should be investigated. Filing a false police report, filing a false document, probably under oath as part of the restraining order process. I mean, this is horrible. Extortion, like literally trying to extort him for money based on false allegations. Like, it's just horrible what's happening. So Trevor Bauer says it appears. So Elon Musk asked, were her lawyers aware that she withheld evidence to Trevor Bauer? And this is his response. It appears her lawyers had the evidence the entire time, speaking specifically about the video of her laying in bed next to me with no marks on her face the morning after she claims I brutally attacked her. An email complaining that the video was sent to her attorney, Brian Friedman, before the DVRO hearing in 2021, and it was never turned over to us. Perhaps that's why he insisted on adding his name to the released party section in the settlement agreement. So it sounds like Trevor Bauer didn't ever sue this lawyer, but he was so scared based on his actions that he put his name as one of the parties to be released, meaning Trevor Bauer will not sue him with regards to anything that happened in this case. That's wild. Do you think that that is an admission of wrongdoing? I don't know. It's interesting at the very least. We don't know. We haven't heard from Brian Friedman. I don't know him either. I don't know what his involvement was, but it seems like Trevor Bauer thinks that he knew he had some wrongdoing. He's accusing him of concealing evidence, which is absolutely unethical and potentially something you could sue over. So he got that protection as part of this settlement agreement, which is pretty wild. There was also a 12-day span of text between Lindsay, who's the accuser, and two of her closest friends immediately following the incident that were deleted. We asked for them in discovery for the DVRO. They weren't turned over. We also argued that they must be turned over in the DVRO proceedings, and they were not. Lindsay Hill's other law firm, Meyer, Olson, Lowry, and Myers, who co-represented her through that court process, had them the whole time. And what's horrible about this is lawyers that know they have evidence that their client is lying or the accusations she's making are not true or fabricated or at least exaggerated, and they still go forward to try to get money, is what gives lawyers a bad name. We talk about it all the time. It's plaintiffs' lawyers, right? Like me. This is what gives us a bad name. Lawyers that know you have a losing case or know a client is exaggerating or know a client is trying to extort somebody out of money. And you don't say no. You take that case, you ruin somebody's life. You don't even make a buck in this case. And it's like, what? Why are we doing this? Is this why we went to law school? To help people? It's horrible. I hate to see it. I know you guys will too. I already know what the comment section is going to be like in this video. It's horrible. And I feel bad for him, even though I don't know him. Again, I don't know what his character is like, what his disposition is like, if he's nice, if he's mean, whatever it may be. It's just really sad when this happens to people. Seems to be happening more often, especially with social media. And I think we need to figure out a way to try to protect people that are accused of crimes like this. So let me know what you think in the comments. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Give it a like, subscribe to our page if you haven't already, and always keep me posted on the content that you guys are interested in, whether it's on Twitter, on Instagram, or in the comments here. I'm always interested in what you guys are watching, what you're consuming, what questions you have, and anything I can add value to. That's the point of this channel. That's what I'd like to do here as the lawyer you know. So until next time, I'm out of here. Thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit the thumbs up and share with your friends who might be interested here on YouTube. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. You can also follow us on all social media, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, at Lawyer You Know. But on Instagram, we are still at Tragos Law. So look us up on there. And don't forget to listen to the Lawyer You Know podcast, available on all major podcast platforms. If you have a case you want to talk to us about, if it's a personal injury case, wrongful death, catastrophic injury, car accident, or slip and fall case, please email us lawyeryouknow@gmail.com. Of course, all of these links I just mentioned are included in the description below on this episode and every episode. So until next time, this is Peter Tragos, the Lawyer You Know.